U.S. President Donald Trump set to reveal his verdict on the Paris Climate Accord.
We're here, of course, to raise the rainbow and the trans flags and to kick off the Pride Month.
One of the world's largest Pride celebrations begins in Toronto. A celebratory ship sets sail and will take you there live. Humber News starts now. Hi, I'm Dylan Perigo, coming to you from our newsroom at Humber's North Campus. Thanks for joining us. Here's what's making news this hour. The world awaits U.S. President Donald Trump's decision on whether or not he will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. The 2015 agreement is the first legally binding global pact to combat climate change. If the U.S. withdraws, it will join just Nicaragua and Syria as the only non-participants in the deal. Germany and China today reaffirmed their commitment to the agreement, vowing to expand their partnership. British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson said that regardless of Trump's decision, progress at tackling the CO2 emissions will continue.
So many of the gains that have been made in tackling CO2 emissions have been made not at a federal level in the US, but also at a state level. And it's the actions of individual state governments and governors that you've seen big reductions in CO2 and emissions. We will continue to work with the US at all levels to drive down CO2.
The U.S. holds the number 2 spot for worst carbon emissions, more than every country except China. Scientists are saying pulling out of the agreement will hasten the effects of climate change, including frequent storms, floods, and droughts. Pressure is also increasing from corporate America. Top CEOs from companies including Facebook and Apple signed an open letter calling on Trump to remain in the deal. In the letter, the CEOs make their case for why the climate accord is good for business. Even ExxonMobil, the world's largest oil and gas company, is urging the U.S. president to honor the agreement. Cleanup is underway in the Afghan capital after this week's deadly bombing. The UN Secretary General has strongly condemned the attack in Kabul's diplomatic district, just blocks away from the Canadian embassy. He underlined the need to reinforce the fight against terrorism and violent extremism through his spokesperson in New York.
Indiscriminate attacks against civilians are grave violations of human rights and international humanitarian law and can never be justified.
Humber News reporters reached correspondents on the ground in Kabul in the wake of the attack on Wednesday. Adam Bernards has the story.
The city of Kabul was hit by another suicide bombing. The attack left at least 80 people dead and 350 injured. Reporter Josh Smith is in the city and has been covering the story as it unfolds.
So the scene that we saw was there was a lot of chaos at the scene itself. Over the city there was a massive plume of smoke and dust for even miles and kilometers away. It was felt and seen, and there were shattered glass far and wide. At the scene itself, there was quite a bit of incredible devastation. The bomb left a bomb crater that was about several meters deep in the road, which testifies again to the power of the bomb.
First responders arrived quickly on the scene. A number of ambulances and paramedics started bringing the injured to nearby hospitals. With such a high number of injured civilians, the hospitals quickly grew very crowded.
Some of those hospitals were close enough that they even sustained some damage, but yet their staff continued to go on treating people as they went there.
Freelance journalist Franz J. Marty, who is also in Kabul, says that things in the city are already getting back to normal.
They clean up the broken windows, but life goes on. A few hours after the blast, I went to the dry cleaner to get a suit of mine. At the dry cleaner is about 5 minutes from the blast site, and if the window wouldn't be broken, you wouldn't notice that anything special happened.
Cleanup efforts are underway in Kabul. The people are cleaning up the broken glass and debris and getting back to their daily lives. Attacks like this are happening more and more frequently in Kabul. Nobody has claimed responsibility for the attack.
Closer to home, former nurse Elizabeth Wettlaufer has pled guilty in a Woodstock court today to the murders of 8 senior citizens. Wettlaufer entered guilty pleas for each of the 8 first-degree murders, along with 4 charges of attempted murder and 2 charges of aggravated assault. When the presiding judge asked Wettlaufer if she had committed the acts with intent to kill, Wettlaufer responded, "Yes, Your Honor." Police have alleged that the various crimes took place over the span of a decade, during which time Wettlaufer was employed at 3 different long-term care facilities, as well as a private home. Torontonians strapped on high-heeled shoes this week, showing solidarity to women affected by violence. Humber News reporter Matt Hodder has the story.
Hundreds gathered at David Picot Square on Wednesday and walked a mile in her shoes in an effort to end violence against women. The 8th annual fundraiser, hosted by White Ribbon, saw hundreds of participants, both male and female, and of all ages, show solidarity by walking a loop through Toronto's downtown core in high-heel shoes. Opening remarks were made by Councillor Joe Cressy and Todd Minerson of White Ribbon, and Good Life Fitness got the crowd ready to walk. NDP leadership candidate Jagmeet Singh also participated in the event for the first time this year. Singh told Humber News what he took away from the event.
So even what we've learned about from this campaign is the idea of toxic masculinity, where we don't admit emotionally when we're also hurt or when we hurt others, and just this understanding of accepting that, sometimes we're wrong in our approaches.
Minerson, executive director for White Ribbon, explained how Walk a Mile in Her Shoes has raised over $850,000 since its inception, and explained where that money goes.
It goes to our partnership work with women's shelters, it goes to the youth work that we do in schools, it goes to community building projects and partnerships with Indigenous groups and ethnocultural groups across the country, and it's really our biggest source of income outside of government funding for the work that we do.
Michael Brown, first to complete the lap, and whose Town Shoes fundraising team brought in nearly half of this year's total with $62,000, was able to combine 2 passions in the walk.
Well, ending violence against women is a great cause. Not too many opportunities where you can wear Wonder Woman boots, so it's kind of a perfect day to blend them both.
Today, over 600 people gathered at Roy Thompson Hall to walk a mile in her shoes, raising over $158,000 to end violence against women. Matt Hodder, Humber News.
The beginning of June also means the start of Pride Month in Toronto. Crowds gathered at City Hall on Wednesday for the official mayoral proclamation and flag-raising ceremony. Humber News reporter Sarah Watson was there.
The 37th annual Pride festivities have begun with the raising of the transgender and rainbow flags at Toronto City Hall by Mayor John Tory. In his speech, Tory emphasized the diversity of the city and the importance of keeping an open dialogue about issues important to the LGBTQ2S community.
I'm not going to stand here and pretend that the work in Toronto, the work in addressing those issues is done, because it's not done. There are issues right now that are being discussed and worked through. They've been discussed in my presence and with my participation in our discussions, for example, of anti-black racism. These are things that we have to confront.
Tory announced the city will work on the preservation of human rights, safety, and respect for people still victims of discrimination.
I want you to feel safe, just like everybody else in this city should feel safe, and I want you to feel engaged, and I want you to feel respected.
Alika Hall, co-chair of Pride Toronto's board of directors, says the ceremony with Tory represents the support of the city.
Pride is our opportunity to come together as a community and as a city, and it all starts today with this flag raising.
Jeremy Vincent attended the ceremony dressed as a Kiwi and representing Community One, a nonprofit that supports the LGBTQ2S community. He says Pride is an opportunity to inspire others.
You need role models to sort of say, this is where we're at. We're coming forward.
Hull says what makes Pride so special is the participation of the Greater Toronto community.
Seeing different organizations who are not even part of the Pride Month festivities, putting up their own rainbow flags, putting up the trans flag, having their own activities and programming for community members. So really seeing people come out and just overall seeing in this city the overwhelming amount of support that there is for our community.
Though the rain came down during a barbecue after the ceremony, the sun remained bright until the flags proudly waved. And with that, Pride Month officially kicks off in Toronto. Throughout the next few weeks, there'll be events across the city, culminating in the big parade at the end of June. Sarah Watson, Humber News.
We're going to take a quick break. Still ahead, the latest in sports. But first, Genya Kuipers as a preview of your 3-day forecast.
The clouds have parted and the sun is here to stay. We'll have your weekend forecast coming up after the break.